everybody, and welcome back to Inside Number 23 for this, our first episode of 2018. I am so excited and happy to be back with you guys again. In case you don't know, if this is your first time checking out the podcast, my name is Katie. You can find me pretty much everywhere on social media as Miss Lavelli, although I'm most active on Instagram. You can also find a Ravelry group for the podcast if you just head over to Ravelry and search Inside Number 23 on the groups tab. And if you're looking for show notes or any information from the podcast episode, just check out the down bar below, just down there, and I should have put all of the details down there as to what I'm talking about today. It's amazing to be back with you in a new year for a new fresh start on things, and I'm really excited for everything that this year hopefully will have ahead for me, for the podcast, for everything, but more on that in a little bit. This week's episode is actually going to be a little bit different, as you can probably tell from the setup that I have here. Originally, this episode was going to be posted at the end of 2017, but then I had a couple of changes as to what I wanted to do and talk about this episode, so it's ended up being a January one for the new year. But I really wanted to talk about everything that has been going on throughout 2017, just have a little look back over the events of last year and look forward to the year ahead of us. The podcast will be business as usual from next week onwards, but I thought it would be nice just to have a little bit of reflection before we kick off 2018. So let's go. 2017, what a year. It was an interesting year in many ways. I started off 2017 in January with my word of the year, which was, and I quote, breathe. The word that I chose for 2017 was breathe, and although I didn't pass out from lack of oxygen, I have to admit it was a bit of a failure in terms of my word for the year. I managed to feel more stress and anxiety over 2017 than I have in several years before, but it has taught me a lot, and yeah, I suppose we should just kick off things starting with January. So we started 2017 in January with a bit of a bang. We went to New York, myself and Emrys, and we had an absolutely amazing time together. It's been a really long time since we went to New York together. It was one of the things that really cemented our relationship, I think, right way back when we were still just dating. So it was really special for us to be able to go and share that time together. Obviously, I also visited Vogue Knitting Live, which was pretty epic on several levels. One, I had never been to a yarn event in America, and you guys do things on quite a different scale than we do here in the UK. But also, it was just really magical to meet so many incredible people, many of whom I have wanted to meet for a very long time, fellow podcasters, and share the yarny love from across the ocean that I've wanted to for a while, but also to be able to meet so many viewers of the podcast in person. That was an incredible moment that I will never forget. It's something I will always hold very near and dear to my heart. So yeah, that was a pretty magical way to kick off the year. It was also pretty amazing because we managed to snag tickets for Hamilton completely out of the blue and unexpected. We started the trip thinking never in a million years will we be able to see Hamilton, and we saw it, and it lives up to the hype, you guys. So that was particularly amazing. Whilst in New York, I also got my first tattoo of the year. I wanted a permanent reminder of the amazing time that we were having in New York, and I got a beautiful knitting themed tattoo on my ankle, which I still love and adore. And yeah, it was just an amazing way to start 2017 with a bang, and we were really looking forward to everything that was going to happen throughout that year. In terms of makes, I was pretty prolific throughout January. I managed to churn out quite a few different projects. 3 different pairs of socks came into fruition in January. And I also finished up a pair of mittens and a hat, which I wore throughout my time in New York, which was lovely. I was very toasty warm, and matching sets are definitely the way forward. I'd definitely like to get some more of those on the needles this year. Moving on to February, after our trip to New York, we definitely slowed down a little bit and we're enjoying more time at home. But something particularly wonderful that happened in February was that I attended Unravel, which is a wonderful Yarny event here in the UK. And I met for the first time one of my near and dear friends whom I absolutely adore, which was of course Amy of the Stranded podcast and Stranded Dye Works. We met in person for the first time back in February, although it feels as though we've known each other for much longer than that now. I've actually finished up some pretty big projects in February as well. I had cast on the Find Your Fade shawl in January, that got finished in February. I finished up my first garment of the year, which was my Blaster cardigan. I also finished one more pair of self-striping socks, and I started a crochet granny stripe blanket, which ended up getting 2 rows done on it, which I then wouldn't pick up until December. But yeah, started it in February. How insane is that? March, of course, was the time of Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and oh my goodness, I have been looking forward to Edinburgh Yarn Festival for the longest time. I couldn't even believe that I was going. I hadn't thought that it would be a possibility, considering that we had been to New York just in January, and it was such a treat for me to be able to go. I went with my lovely friend Vero, and staying with her was an absolute joy. She had been to Edinburgh Yarn Festival previously, so I really appreciated her taking me under her wing and looking after me during my time there. But I was lucky enough to be able to see some old friends. Edinburgh also marks the first time that I ever met Nikki in person. Nikki, of course, of Tea Impossibilities, and I still remember the moment where I looked across the podcaster lounge and I saw her face. She was there with her boyfriend, and I just was so happy to see her, and I've been happy to see her ever since, so I will be forever grateful for Edinburgh Yarn Festival for that, and just being back in this incredible city, which I hadn't been to since Emrys and I went there on our honeymoon, and soaking up the joy that it brings. Everybody who I spent time with in Edinburgh, thank you for bringing so much light and brightness into my life. It is so appreciated, and fingers crossed I am going to do my best to be back with you again this year, and hopefully I will be bringing Emrys with me, so watch this space. Please, please, please. I hope we can make it happen. Project-wise, I was still knitting away like an absolute demon. I finished my Snow Day shawl, which was a pattern by lovely Mina Phillip. I also completed my Wainthorpe cardigan, my second Andy Satterland project of the year, and I managed to start sewing again. I'd had a bit of a hiatus from sewing, but I finished 2 different projects. Another version of my old favourite, the Robe Bluet dress, version number 3 with the cats embroidered on the collar, which I love, and one of my first Tilly and the Buttons pattern of the year, which was the Coco dress. So started getting my sewing on again, which was really fun. Slightly off topic, nothing really to do with yarn or knitting or sewing or anything, but we also purchased a new sofa in March, which, although it doesn't sound like much, was a really big deal for us. And every step that we take to making number 23 feel more like the home that we want it to be, just makes my heart so happy. So although it may not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, getting that sofa, it really changed a lot of things for us, so yay, sofa. Things definitely quietened down around April time for me. One of the really big moments of that month was getting my second tattoo of the year. This one, of course, was my pug portrait tattoo that I'd wanted to get for a very long time. Rolly, our gorgeous precious little pug, is well and truly the light of my life. I adore him, unashamedly so, and I had been wanting to get a portrait tattooed of him for the longest time. When I found that Vicky, my tattooist, who I travelled to Nottingham to see, had some time available in April, I jumped at the chance. And to this day, it's probably up there as being one of the best tattoo experiences that I've ever had, and I would gladly go and see Vicky again. A lot of bigger projects knitting wise got finished in April. I finished my pavement sweater. I also finished 2 different shawls, my Patrona shawl and the Colourfield shawl, my first version of the Colourfield shawl this year, which was a gift from my mum. May was definitely a month for sewing. I was taking part in Me Made May this year and I managed to wear a Me Made outfit every single day in May, although there were lots of overlaps, so I did end up kind of having multiple days where I was wearing the same outfit. It was a great feeling being able to have something Me Made on every single day in May. One of my real dreams and ambitions is to eventually get to the point where I do have an entirely Me Made wardrobe. I also feel like I connected more with the sewing community online. I feel like I have a fantastic relationship with the knitting community, but I'm still finding my way, shall we say, with the sewing community. So doing Me Made May was a really fabulous experience, and if you too feel a little apprehensive about taking your first steps into the online sewing community, I could not recommend it more highly, and I will most definitely be taking part again this year. Because it was a very sewing heavy month, May, I actually ended up making quite a lot of sewing projects. I completed my first blouse version of the Robe Bluet by Deer and Doe, which I love and I wear to death, and I should definitely think about making some more because I love it so much. I also finished my first version of the Tilly and the Buttons Cleo dress, which I love, and I have another currently in pieces waiting to be sewn together. So this year I think I'll at least be seeing another 2 or possibly even 3 versions of the Cleo dress emerging. I finished up my first ever pair of pyjamas, which I don't wear as much as I should do, mostly because they're so nice. I almost don't want to wear them because I don't want to spoil them, but I love them to bits, my pyjamas. They are just epic. I love them. I also finished another version of the Madeline skirt by Victory Patterns with the massive pockets in tartan, and yeah, it was a fabulous month for sewing. The inspiration that I got from doing Me Made May was epic. I also completed my first ever project using Stranded Dye Works, which was a lovely neon hat with a big fluffy pom-pom on top, which I love. I really just enjoy knitting hats in general. That's something that 2017 definitely taught me as well. I started filming a daily vlog series in May of this year called It's Gonna Be May, and unfortunately I only lasted about halfway through the month. I was really happy with all of the footage that I put out. It was a really lovely experience, but this was very much the start of a lot of building pressure in my personal life and my work life, which then meant that I wasn't fully able to commit to doing as many videos as I wanted to do. I really struggle with the fact that there are certain series of videos that I've posted that never came to fruition. It's something that I beat myself up about a lot, but in the end something has to give eventually, and unfortunately for some of this year it has been the amount of videos that I've been able to produce, which is hopefully something that I'm looking to rectify for this next year, because more than ever I just want to be creative with this channel and give you guys good content on a regular basis, and it's very important to me. So although I was very proud of what I did with It's Gonna Be May, I really wish I'd been able to finish the entire month. May, excitingly, was also the first time that Nikki, Amy and I were all in the same place at the same time for the first time ever, and that's not going to be going away anytime soon. So guys, that May will always be our little anniversary. June, oh my goodness, June. So my brother and my sister-in-law, they got married in June, and it was really lovely to be able to share that day with them. I obviously made my dress that I wore to the wedding. I was very happy with it. It's the first time in a long time that I've actually made something a little bit more glamorous. When I first started sewing and knitting, in terms of creating a handmade wardrobe, a lot more of what I was creating was very glamorous, very vintage styling, and the older I get, the more I'm moving into slightly more comfort, still very nicely made, hopefully, garments, but less glamour. So it was lovely kind of taking a look back at that older side of me and making something that I was very proud of. I love that dress, and yeah, it was lovely to be able to wear something that I made to my brother's big day. I also finally finished a pair of socks for Emrys in June, his Doctor Who socks. I have not knit another project for him since. Poor Emrys, he hasn't had many things made for him this year, but I really did like making those socks. They're very special, and he really enjoys them, although one of the reasons I don't knit very many things for him, he has that thing that he thinks that they're really nice and he can't wear them on a day-to-day basis in case they get ruined. So yeah, maybe that's why I don't knit many more things for him. July felt like a very big month for me. A lot of things were happening behind the scenes. I don't know whether or not it was something that anyone was aware of when they were watching my podcast throughout June and July, but I was dealing with some serious issues with the job that I had been doing for the last several years. It was one of the reasons really that I hadn't been able to finish It's Gonna Be May. And I had really struggled with being able to put out content because I was very unhappy in the job that I was doing. I had been working in the same job for 2.5 years, and it had got to breaking point where I was so unsatisfied. So many things were happening behind the scenes with that job that it was leaking into my personal life, and I really didn't enjoy the type of person that I was becoming by continuing within that job. So the biggest kind of change, I guess, that happened in July of 2017 was that on a whim I applied for a job that I saw advertised on Instagram for a company that I really believed in, that I really liked, and that is of course Tilly and the Buttons. I applied for the job of office assistant. I went to the interview a week later, and on the same day that I interviewed I was called and offered the role. I then the next day went into my previous job, handed in my notice, and 2 weeks later I started working for Tilly, and it was definitely one of the best decisions that I made in 2017, leaving a job that was making me incredibly unhappy and starting something completely new. It has had its challenges. It's not always been what I expected it to be, insofar as very soon after I accepted the job as an assistant, we had a big overhaul and I'm now the office manager, and it's been a steep learning curve in a lot of ways, but it's proved to me more than anything that I can pretty much do anything if I set my mind to it, even though I feel like I have no experience in certain things and I doubt my abilities in a lot of ways. If I set my mind to a challenge and I'm unafraid to ask for help when I need it, there are a lot more things that I'm able to achieve than I know. And I need to trust myself more. That's what I learned throughout July, along with kind of a new job, a new start. I also became a vegetarian. Both Emrys and I back in July decided to try being vegetarian, and we've stuck to it. I am definitely borderline between vegetarian and vegan. I drink pretty much no milk anymore. I avoid dairy products whenever I can. The only thing that really kind of affects me is cheese. But it's a good thing. It's a journey. Maybe I will be vegan, maybe I'll stick with being vegetarian, but for now I'm just educating myself as much as I can around what I'm eating, about where it's coming from, and that has obviously also started to merge into other aspects of how I live my life. Trying to go cruelty-free in terms of all of the products that I use, beauty products and products around the house, going more eco-friendly, making sure that we're using products and food that is locally sourced, that's a little bit better than just eating whatever we want whenever we want and not necessarily thinking about the greater consequences. I don't want this to sound too preachy, because I, by all accounts, I'm not telling anybody else how to live their life, but making these decisions for ourselves and the way that we're choosing to live now it's pretty amazing, and we're both incredibly happy, and hopefully long may it continue. I also visited a couple of different Yarny events back in July. I went to PomFest, which was wonderful. In particular, I met the incredible Katie Green at PomFest, which was lovely. Katie, meeting you was an utter joy, and to this day, just it overwhelms me how amazing you are, and I very much appreciate our relationship now. So thanks, you're awesome. I also visited Fibre East, and over both of those events I spent time with dear friends in a lovely yarny environment, and just feeling like I'm well and truly cemented within the yarny community makes me happy and brings me more joy than I thought would be physically possible. But yeah, July was busy, very, very busy on very many levels. And it also seemed to be the month of socks, because I think I managed to finish 4 different pairs of socks in July. The latter part of the year, I would say the last third of 2017, has definitely had some serious challenges. August was a very big month for decorating for me around the house. I really started getting itchy feet about certain projects that I wanted to get done in terms of decorating my office, which is now 100% finished. I love it. I say 100% finished, it could still do with a little bit of tarting up and a few accessories here and there, but the main part of the decorating is finished, and that felt like a huge achievement, because that's one of the first projects in a long time that I literally did 100% myself, from start to finish, kind of imagining what I wanted, getting all of the work done, going to pick out all of the furniture. It was a big achievement for me, and it was at a time where I felt like I was hitting a lot of brick walls in terms of a lot of aspects of my life, and to have that as a big achievement was pretty sweet, so that made me pretty happy. I also knitted my first ever baby sweater. That was a gift for Tilly, who was expecting at the time, and I finished another garment. It had been a while since I'd actually got any garments off the needles, but I went fully monogamous on my wickerwork pullover, and I adore that sweater. Oh my goodness, I wear it all the time, and having it off the needles has really inspired me to get more garments on the go, which is definitely what 2018 will be about, I think. September was a really special month for me this year, mostly because at the end of it I turned 30. Oh my goodness, you are now looking at a 30-year-old woman, and I couldn't be happier to have left my 20s behind me. In many ways they were wonderful, but if I could choose whether to be 30 or whether to go back to be turning 20, I would definitely pick to be 30. It's never been something that worried me, turning 30. I know a lot of people within my age group find it quite difficult because it's a fairly big age. It's definitely a change, I think. There's a mental shift, but I'm happier than I've ever been. And yeah, I'm really super happy to be a woman in her 30s. But September was also pretty special because I decided to mix things up with the channel a little bit, which was really, really needed. I'd started to feel a little bit restricted in terms of the content I was producing. As I'd kind of hinted, things started to get more complicated. When things get complicated in my working life or my personal life, I get very, very stressed and very anxious, and I wanted an outlet to be able to do something very different and just be purely creative for a little bit. And that's what my 30 Before 30 series was all about in September. I put out videos on this channel that I have never done before. I took a lot of inspiration from other YouTubers, and by all means a lot of my ideas were not original, but they were very different from what I've done here before. Also, I celebrated my first ever publication in a magazine. I was interviewed for a magazine, which was amazing to be able to hold that in my hands and to see me, just for this podcast, just being celebrated because of this was really, really amazing, and I absolutely loved it. I also started putting out a couple of singing videos, which really meant the world to me, how well appreciated they were and how well received. It's definitely something that I am looking to do in the future, so those of you who enjoyed those aspects of 30 Before 30, watch this space, there will be more coming. And it really helped me see that just because I started this channel to talk about knitting and sewing doesn't mean that that's all that I can talk about here. And everything that I put out may not be of interest to everyone. There are always going to be some people who are excited by having something a little bit different, and that meant the world to me. So thank you for everybody who supported that little series. although of course there are still 2 videos of 30 before 30 that never actually made it onto the channel. Life kind of overtook me and I still have the footage. I could definitely still edit those together and make a little bit of a bonus video if anybody's interested, but a little bit of time has gone by now, so if that is something you're interested, drop me a comment down below and just let me know. Otherwise, I'll just free up the space on my camera and delete all of the other footage. September was also another big month for sewing projects. I have no doubt that that is because of my change in role, being surrounded by sewing types and beautiful patterns and beautiful fabric. But I actually managed to complete 3 different sewing projects in September. I finished off an incredible flamingo print blouse. I also was able to sew up the new version of the Robe Bluet by Deer & Doe, which was an amazing experience. And I sewed up my Martha dress, which is a gorgeous pattern, and I'm very, very happy to have completed that. I wore Martha to some different events in September as well. I was lucky enough to go to 2 different live sewing events, the Sewing Bee Live and the Handmade Fair, representing Tilly and the Buttons, and again, it's broadened my horizons to different aspects of the creative community, and I loved every second of it. I think generally my year had been incredibly positive, and yeah, a little bit stressful from time to time, but everything was moving in a very, very positive direction. And it only kind of works if you have the ebbs and the flows with life. You know, you can't always be on a high. And both October and November were a bit difficult for us. Rolly was very, very unwell. I talked a little bit on the channel about what went on with him and his illness, and the diagnosis that took months to be able to come to a point where we knew exactly what was wrong. And then him being allergic to the medication that they put him on, and we weren't sleeping. It was a really difficult time, mostly because I've come to realise that I can cope with pretty much everything in life if I can sleep, but when I'm going through stress and then you take sleep away from me as well, that's just not going to work, unfortunately. And it was difficult because both Emrys and I were feeling the same. We were both having challenging periods at work, having very little time for ourselves, worrying about Rolly, you know, really suffering because he was suffering, because he is our little boy, and so to see him in pain was very, very difficult. And on top of that, the added expense of looking after a poorly pet. Not that we resent that at all, because I would move heaven and earth if it were to make him better. And then not sleeping as well, and often spending time in different beds even, so that one of us could sleep and one of us could stay with Rolly to prevent him from hurting himself while he was asleep. And it was hard, and it felt like it was going on indefinitely. That whole experience, looking back on it now, I am so glad that we're out of that. But trying to draw positives from that kind of time, my relationship with my husband, thank God for my husband. I adore him, and I think that our relationship is stronger now than it has ever been, and he is my rock, and I love him. He's my best friend. So to go through challenges with someone who you care for that deeply, it's pretty amazing to know that nothing can shake your relationship. So for that I will be forever grateful. And of course, it really solidified for me just how much my dog means to me. And I know that I sound like a crazy dog person when I say this, but looking after Rolly when he was unwell and kind of nursing him back to health after everything that happened with his illness, he is everything to us. And I know that a lot of people don't necessarily think that you should treat dogs like people, but he is so much more than just a pet to us. He's a member of our family. We love him unconditionally as he loves us, and yeah, we are incredibly lucky to have him. That's all really. I feel like what was going on outside of the podcast really started to reflect back into the podcast throughout October and November. It was the time of the great frog, shall we say. It felt like every project that I cast on within a matter of days or weeks would get ripped out. It was a big time when I was pretty much undoing all of the work that I had done on other projects throughout the year. I was just undoing everything. Everything was unraveling. My knitting projects, my life. It was very strange how having all of those kind of big challenges in our lives then caused me to be very destructive with my creative life and literally rip things to pieces, undo work, uncreate things. And then again, how cathartic that was, and how that has started for me at the end of this year a new wave of creativity that I could not have imagined would have been possible just a few months ago. Without sounding too airy-fairy, it really does make me think that everything happens for a reason, and we are given challenges that we are able to deal with to a certain extent that can teach us how to make things better in the future, or at least I hope that's what's going to happen. Because pretty much the only thing that I created through October and November that came into completion was a little dog coat for Rolly, which he loves and looks beautiful in. But it's pretty funny that that's the only thing that I ended up making over a 2-month period. I spent more time unmaking than actually making. And unfortunately, the podcast suffered. I did not end up podcasting as much as I'd wanted to. I took a lot of time off. But you guys were incredible. You stuck with me. You were more than supportive through everything. And I'm so thankful to have such an incredible audience who have supported me and this channel throughout 2017. You are amazing. So that brings us on to the last part of 2017, December, which has just gone by. Spent the most wonderful festive season with my family. It was utterly magic. I'm just very lucky to really get on with my family as much as I do. It's a real treat. And my parents in particular, I just adore. So that was very, very special. I also took part in Vlogmas, and I finished Vlogmas. I was so worried as I was coming to the end of Vlogmas that I was starting to run out of steam, and that I would do the thing where I only managed to upload half the amount of videos, or a third of the videos, or even 3/4 of the videos that I'd wanted to. I stayed committed to Vlogmas, and I uploaded right until the very end, and I was incredibly proud, and I loved it. It was a lovely time to share with you guys, and also to feel part of a bigger group of people, all of whom were taking part in Vlogmas at the same time. It's just a really fun activity, and it was great. It was really fun. Talking about the time through October and November undoing a lot of things, and how that suddenly drove me creatively throughout December, I managed to complete so many more projects than I thought that I would have been able to. I finished 2 different sweaters. My Kerrytown pullover was finished, but I also knit up a Christmas jumper in next to no time at all, which was one of my favourite projects of 2017 actually. I really, really loved it. I also finished a Francoise dress for the festive period, which I love. It's a pattern that I will definitely be revisiting in 2018 if I can. And towards the end of the year, I also managed to finish this, my little Agnes top. And I've even got another project off the needles, which I haven't actually shared on the podcast yet, so I'll wait until next week to share that with you properly. But talk about a massive creative outpouring happening towards the end of the year. And if anything, that's how I want to proceed and go forward with 2018. So that was my year. It was pretty amazing and pretty horrendous and pretty wonderful all at the same time. It's been interesting, it's been challenging, it's been heartbreaking, it's been everything that a good year should be, well and truly. And I always think it's funny when you look back on a year and you think, oh, I didn't really do all that much in terms of my crafting. I didn't really end up getting all of that much done over the past year. But when you look back at the numbers, my goodness, I did manage to get a fair bit done. I knit 9 pairs of socks, 6 jumpers or cardigans, 5 shawls, 1 pair of mittens, 3 hats, 1 baby jumper, and then in terms of my sewing, I sewed 1 dog coat, 7 dresses, which I'm pretty damn impressed about, 3 different blouses or tops, 1 pair of pyjamas and 1 skirt. And I think that that is pretty good going in terms of achievements for the year. 2018, going forward into this new year, I really do enjoy celebrating the new year. This year, Emrys and I had a really lovely quiet time in together, just the 2 of us. We watched some good TV and some movies, we watched the fireworks, we got a half bottle of champagne which we shared between us, and we got some fancy cakes, and we saw the new year in very, you know, very much as party animals. I think not. Curled up on our sofa together, just looking forward to everything that 2018 will hopefully have to offer. I haven't really made any specific resolutions for 2018. When we were moving into 2016, I had set myself masses of resolutions in terms of specific things that I wanted to achieve. And last year I had my word for the year, which kind of went by the board. And this year, although it's been difficult and I have had some more trying times, I can genuinely say, hand on heart, I feel happier and more satisfied with life than I have done in a very, very, very long time. And as I actually saw my friend Nikki posted on Instagram today, she said, New Year, New Me is not really something that I'm into. So this year it's going to be New Year, more me. And Nikki, I couldn't agree with you more, because more than anything, I want to take what I've learned over the past couple of months and take the positive from it and push forward with just more of what I've been able to do over December, what I've felt, how I've felt with my job, with my personal life, with my creative life, and just pour all of that into 2018. I don't necessarily have any huge monumental resolutions in terms of I'm going to read this many books, or I'm going to go out this many times, or I'm going to fly across the world, or I'm going to visit these different places and do all of these different things. I do have a couple of more specific goals and resolutions that are quite personal to me, that just in terms of where I'm at inside my brain. So those things are going to stick inside my brain. I hope you will forgive me for not being more specific about those, but more than anything, I just want to continue on this journey that I have started, and I feel great about it. I really, really do. Having said that, kind of all vague, I am actually going to be taking part in the Make 9 kind of challenge that has started on Instagram over the last couple of years. I have picked out specific projects for both sewing and knitting that I would really like to achieve in 2018. But I will be talking about that more in another video, because I really want to be able to talk specifically about the choices that I've made. And if I were to do that here, the video would be just of epic proportions, and nobody needs that. For now, from me, I hope that you've enjoyed this look back over 2017, and I hope that you are in the best possible position to go into this new year with positivity in mind. Maybe you have some specific goals and things that you would like to achieve, or maybe like me, you just want to continue on the upward trajectory that you are hopefully on. But whatever 2018 has in store for all of you, I am sending you all so much love and appreciation because of everything that you have done for me over the past year. I can't thank you enough. You know that I think that you're all amazing, and I genuinely hope that 2018 brings you everything that you could possibly want and more, because you deserve it. For now, I'm going to stop waffling on, although there hasn't been a general waffle this week. There's just been a general waffle throughout the entire episode. As I've said, it will be business as usual from next week. I will be updating you with all of the podcast admin and everything going into the new year, so please hang on a little bit longer. But for now, I hope you all have a tremendous week. Happy New Year to you all. I love you. Happy sewing, happy knitting. Happy New Year. And I'll see you all next week. Bye!